In March of 2016, Epic Games released their third-person MOBA, Paragon. While there was a lot of interest in the game initially, it failed to attract and maintain a large enough player base for it to be sustainable. While there was a fairly sizable group of die-hard and dedicated Paragon fans, it simply wasn't enough, and the game shut down in April of 2018. At that time, the MOBA market was heavily dominated by League of Legends, Dota 2, and Smite. These three games basically set the standard for MOBAs, and Paragon's approach to the genre was drastically different. Instead of gameplay being mostly grounded, Paragon took full advantage of the Z-axis and had a focus on verticality. Instead of buying and building items from a shop, you built decks and equipped cards. And instead of having the top and bottom lanes either being 1v1 or 2v2, they were 2v1. It was a little too different for a lot of people, with those last two aspects of the game being really disliked by a lot of players. Although, by the end of Paragon's life, they did change the lanes to be 1v1s. This brings up a large issue the game faced. The devs weren't afraid to make vast and sweeping changes to the game to try to make it better, which is by no means a bad thing. But the problem was, the changes that were made were very polarizing for players, and it made Paragon struggle to keep a consistent identity. This rang especially true with the Monolith update.
The Monolith update is not just a new map, it's actually a new gameplay experience for our players. And what we were attempting to do with this map is our best version of what we think the dream of Paragon is, realized in a new map with a new way forward for our players.
So there are a lot of major system changes in the Monolith patch. It's faster, and not just movement. We're talking lethality, cooldowns, the snappiness of abilities, even like the overall urgency of the game has gone up a lot. There's a lot more flow to the match. You always should be doing something.
A few months later, after the Monolith update, they had the New Dawn update, which brought even more huge changes. They reworked the card system, the deck builder, tweaked and reworked attack speed, game pace, and the in-game economy. You got gold for killing minions and heroes now, and you used that gold to level up stats in the attribute tree, which was also a new mechanic. The first and the final versions of Paragon were so dissimilar that if you compared them side by side, you would think they were made by two entirely different groups of people. The final nail in the coffin, however, was the sudden and explosive success of Fortnite. Epic realized that Fortnite was an infinite money glitch and quickly shifted their resources away from Paragon and dumped all of them into Fortnite. Paragon released their final hero Terra and shut down shortly after. Sadly for me, I didn't know Paragon even existed until the last month of its life, and I got hooked on it. I found a new favorite game, but I only had a couple of weeks to play it before it shut down forever. After the game shut down, Epic Games decided to do something crazy, something that made it possible for Paragon to come back. They released all of Paragon's characters and assets for free, meaning that any dev team could come along and revive Paragon. This brought upon what I call There have been several attempts from different studios to try and revive Paragon. While I couldn't find much about some of them, such as Core, Project Phoenix Rising, or Schmaragon, the production and journey of some of them have been heavily documented, so I'm only going to focus on the biggest three. The aforementioned games were either scrapped or are long dead and gone though. Fault Elder Orb came out in July of 2020 and was made by Strange Matter Studios. In order to raise funds for their game, they created an Indiegogo page which managed to raise a little under $70,000. After 2 years of Paragon being shut down, a lot of people were eager to see it return. The team was comprised of passionate Paragon players who saw the potential of the game and they wanted to fully realize that potential with a focus on competitive level play. However, no matter how passionate you are, there are still going to be a lot of issues along the way. The biggest among them being financial strain. Creating and maintaining a MOBA is an incredibly expensive endeavor, especially for a new and small studio, and Fault was never able to obtain a substantial amount of traction. This led to them running out of money to pay staff and keep the servers running. This was largely due to the game's mixed reception. While some were just happy to play a version of their favorite game again, many were not satisfied with several aspects of the game, such as polish, performance issues, lack of dev communication, devs overpromising and underdelivering when they did communicate, and horrific game balancing. They also had a habit of changing core parts of the game that were fully functioning while continuously ignoring things that were broken. Things like audio bugs, map geometry bugs, and server instability. To add on top of all of these problems, another studio announced they were making a Paragon successor in January of 2022. From the trailer alone, this new successor looked way more polished than Fault did after 2 years of release. Fault shut down in November of 2022. Overthrow Paragon was a project made by a solo dev by the name of Rocket Mania. It began production around September of 2017, and somewhere down the line, Overthrow merged with another project called PrimeX. This merger became Paragon the Overprime. Early access for Overprime was revealed in November of 2022 by Netmarble, and it was going to be a free-to-play game. Netmarble is a gigantic mobile game company worth billions of dollars, so there would be no worry about funding issues or being able to build a sizable team to make sure the game was properly maintained. While achieving some initial success, the game quickly began to nosedive. When it released in December of 2022, it debuted with over 32,000 concurrent players on Steam. By March of 2023, just 3 months later, the game struggled to even get over 1,500 concurrent players on a daily basis. Players just weren't satisfied with the game. The map was heavily disliked, as there was only 1 tower per lane as opposed to 2, like virtually every other MOBA that has ever existed. Character balancing was never in a decent spot. The pace of the game was too fast. In my opinion, it felt more like a team deathmatch with a MOBA coat of paint on it more than an actual MOBA, and very high cosmetic prices. The game's community was very vocal about all of these issues, and they made it very clear to the dev team how they felt, but the devs did little to nothing to address anything.
The patches were just lame. The patches didn't address the core issues of like gold and stuff like that, which was always an issue. They didn't really address the formula of a MOBA. And this game, I think, would have been better off if it wasn't a MOBA.
Another big factor which led to the game's demise, at least in my opinion, was competition. Another Paragon successor had released within weeks of Overprime. When 2 games are both trying to function as the spiritual successor to Paragon, one of them is naturally going to draw more attention than the other. And Overprime definitely lost that fight. So just like the original Paragon, Overprime released Terra as their final hero and shut down quickly after in April of 2024. This leads us to the final Paragon successor. In November of 2018, competitive Paragon player and YouTuber RGS Ace hosted a closed alpha announcement for the new game he was making, Predecessor. 2 years later, with the help of Andre Gorilla and Steven Mueller, he created Ometa Studios. In 2021, they were awarded $2.2 million from an Epic Games mega grant, and they even managed to hire the creative director for the original Paragon. With a team full of people that had a lot of first-hand experience with Paragon and people that had a good idea of what made Paragon so loved, the community was hopeful yet again. Throughout the closed alpha and various other playtests that led all the way up to the early access release in December of 2022, player feedback was incredibly positive for the most part. However, especially after the death of Overprime, a lot of players were hesitant to really get into Predecessor. Keep in mind, Paragon had died 3 times at this point, so a lot of people didn't want to invest their time into a game that could very easily end up being the 4th death, and I do think this hindered Pred's ability to gain new players. During the early access time period of Predecessor, which lasted up to August of 2024, players began to become increasingly worried about the future of the game. This was especially prevalent during the 2nd and 3rd season of early access, which was filled with overpromising, under-delivering, delays, and drastically decreased updates. In March of 2024, they entered closed beta and brought the game to consoles, which helped bring a lot of attention to the game. In July 2024, Predecessor released their latest hero, Terra. Given the fact the last 2 times a game added Terra as a character, they ended up shutting down quickly afterward, players were a little scared. They got a little superstitious and started referring to it as the Terra Curse. While some people were joking about it, including the devs, some thought the game actually might die after Terra got added. I won't lie, I was definitely one of those people, but all I could do was wait and see. In August of 2024, a month after Terra was added to Predecessor, something big happened. Predecessor left closed beta and fully released their 1.0 patch, and the game is still alive and well. The curse was finally broken. I'm just going to shill for Pred for a second because I actually love the game so much and it's only gotten better over time. They got ranked, they got fairly decent balancing for the most part. The dev team actually cares and listens to feedback from the community, and they implement that feedback. The CEO even hangs out in different streamers' chats and just chills and talks shit. The original heroes they add to the game are sick. They've added a whole new mechanic to the game recently, which alters and opens up more player expression for every single hero in the game. Pretty much the whole point of this video was just to shill for Predecessor. So, thanks for watching and go play Pred.